On this Sunday night, battle for control of Sudan. The power struggle at the center of the fighting.
Well, it did come through people's windows and people were killed.
And concern from family far away. A Liberal MP not towing the party line. The backbencher who wants the feds to reconsider the foreign agent registry. STIs are on the rise. The morning after style pill that could curb the surge. And waning wanderlust.
Cost is a big issue for sure.
As inflation dampens summer travel plans, the one age group still planning to splurge.
Global National with Farah Nasser.
Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the bloody battle for control in one of the poorest countries in the world. Long-growing tensions between rival military leaders in Sudan has turned violent, and as often the case, civilians are paying the ultimate price. The Sudan Doctor Syndicate says 61 people have been killed and hundreds more wounded, leading to a brief ceasefire today so the wounded could be evacuated. With both factions making competing claims over who's taken what area, it's difficult to get a true picture of the situation on the ground. But new satellite photos do show us the damage in the capital city of Khartoum. The black you see is smoke from buildings either destroyed or still burning, including the army headquarters, the defense and energy ministries. The power struggle is now in its second day. Residents are scared to leave their homes, and those watching their homeland from here in Canada are trying to find ways to help. Megan King has our top story tonight.
Sounds of heavy gunfire were heard into Sunday evening in Sudan's capital of Khartoum. Dozens of civilians and scores of fighters have been killed in a clash that's been months in the making between Sudan's National Army and a powerful paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces. Sudan's army appeared to gain the upper hand on Sunday after fighting erupted on Saturday between the groups. Videos posted by the Sudanese military claimed to show troops ripping down banners at an RSF base and captured RSF troops.
It is a very complicated situation. It is too complicated, but there is still some resolution. I think there is still resolution for this situation.
In Canada, Sudanese Canadians like Huwaida Madani reacting to the bloodshed, calling the events unimaginable. She was just in Sudan 2 weeks ago visiting her family.
I was in a neighborhood called Al Huda with my niece there and her two beautiful children. I was there with them 2 weeks ago. Today, they have their furniture around them and they are sleeping on the floor to make sure that nothing will come, no bullet will come through their windows, because bullet did come through people's windows and people were killed.
The United Nations has even halted its food program there after 3 agency employees were killed.
It came to happening during the holy month of Ramadan, which, everyone is celebrating. Instead of that, now everyone in Sudan actually is afraid.
Canada's Sudanese community associations are now working to send medical supplies and aid.
We established a sort of supply chain. We know how to expedite our intervention in humanitarian crisis like this. We will leverage on that experience to, extend our support to civilians and, injured people over there. All the crisis happening over there.
The community group is also reaching out to its members across Canada to communicate the needs of their families that are still in Sudan so that conversations can begin to try to help and bring relief. Megan King, Global News.
Here in Canada, foreign interference remains a top issue in Ottawa over recent allegations that China has tried to influence this country's elections. The Trudeau government has promised to tackle the problem head-on, including the potential creation of a foreign agents registry to curb such influence. But now, an MP within the governing Liberals is going against the grain and voicing his opposition to that plan. Our Mackenzie Gray joins us from Ottawa with more on this. Mackenzie.
Well, Farah, backbench Liberal MP has taken the rare step of publicly disagreeing with the government on a key part of their plan to try and fight foreign interference.
Ottawa area MP Chandra Arya has sponsored a petition calling on the feds to reconsider implementing a registry of foreign agents. A registry is a misleading way to identify sources of foreign influence, states the petition. We do not believe it will meaningfully address intimidation of Canadians and other kinds of foreign interference. The goal of a registry is to shed light on individuals paid to influence the Canadian political process on behalf of foreign countries like China, Russia, or Iran, places intelligence officials have warned are meddling in Canadian affairs. Consultations on the scope of one are underway, and it's been held up by the Prime Minister as a core part of a strategy on handling meddling in Canadian affairs.
I think it's an important tool. It's not a silver bullet that's going to save everything, but I think it's part of the toolbox that we need to look at.
MPs often sponsor petitions from constituents, even if they disagree with the contents, but that's not what's happened in this case. The person who initiated the petition lives in Coquitlam, BC, over 4,000 kilometers away from Aria's riding, and the Ottawa MP agrees with its message. There is a legitimate fear among Canadians, including the Chinese-Canadian community. The proposed registry as a tool in the wrong hands can lead to harassment and intimidation of many ethnic minorities, Aria told Global News. But some Chinese-Canadian community leaders believe raising concerns of racism is used as a shield against legitimate criticism.
That's what the Chinese government has been doing, is raising the issue of racism to deflect any probing into their influencing of our Canadian society.
Numerous national security experts and members of the Canadian Chinese community have been calling for a registry, something that already exists in the U.S. and Australia, as a part of a suite of measures the government should implement to safeguard Canadian affairs.
It helps clear our name. Otherwise, we'll be forever living under suspicion that some Chinese Canadian politicians might be under the influence of the Chinese government.
Right now, the petition has 400 signatures, and Farah, if it gets up to 500, the government will have 45 days to respond.
So, Mackenzie, with the issue of foreign interference still at the forefront, what could be ahead this week as the House returns?
Yeah, it's really been a 2-week break in the House of Commons from the foreign interference file for Justin Trudeau. The budget's really been taking up a lot of oxygen for him. He's been going across the country speaking about that. But there will likely be questions from Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, tomorrow about the Trudeau Foundation. We've done a number of stories about them here. But on Friday, our colleagues at La Presse put out a real bombshell story saying that back in 2016, a senior member of the Prime Minister's office emailed the Trudeau Foundation asking about a large donation from a Chinese billionaire that has ties to Beijing. And why is that important, Farah? Because the Prime Minister has said in the entire time this Trudeau Foundation story has been an issue that he hasn't been involved with that foundation, that he had no knowledge of it. And if we go back to Katie Telford, his Chief of Staff, she testified on Friday at the House of Commons Committee looking into foreign interference and said that they keep nothing from the Prime Minister. And that idea is going to be put to the test when he gets asked if he knew about this donation. Farah?
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks for the preview. Clean energy was a key focus point in this year's federal budget. About $55 billion in tax credits are up for grabs through the mid-2030s for renewable resources like electricity, wind, and nuclear. There aren't many nuclear plants in Canada right now, but as Eric Sorensen reports, provinces are investing in products that could pay dividends in the coming years.
It didn't get much attention last December, but this was a groundbreaking moment for nuclear power. Ontario kicking off its first nuclear project in 30 years, a small reactor to be built at Darlington.
300 megawatts. That's enough electricity to power 300,000 homes.
Expected to decline in use, nuclear, it seems, is making a comeback. We will build a clean electricity grid, said the finance minister, promising in the federal budget a range of tax incentives. The Canadian Nuclear Association was delighted, stating nuclear is now recognized as a fundamental and necessary component of Canada's low-carbon energy system.
The federal government's approach to nuclear has definitely changed. These new investment tax credits for nuclear energy are a huge boost.
Right now, just 6 large-scale nuclear plants operate in Canada, all but 1 in Ontario. 2 at Bruce Nuclear by Lake Huron, 2 at Pickering and 1 at Darlington, east of Toronto, and 1 at Point Lepreau in New Brunswick. But 4 provinces are now working together and with different companies to develop small modular reactors, SMRs, the next generation of nuclear power in this country. GE Hitachi will build the SMR at Darlington. Moltex wants to license a waste-burning reactor at St. John, New Brunswick. Out west, Sask Power is looking at 2 small potential sites in Saskatchewan. And in the Alberta oil sands, Pathways Alliance, the oil and gas companies, are exploring small nuclear reactors to replace fossil fuels.
We are becoming a global leader in the growing clean economy.
It's very misguided.
This anti-nuclear advocate says nuclear is not clean because it creates radioactive waste that lasts eons, and that wind and solar, which are clean, can be produced much sooner.
It doesn't make sense to build new nuclear reactors since wind and solar energy can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions much faster and at a much lower cost.
Nuclear energy has been controversial for decades, but Canada has a history of producing safe nuclear power, and today it's increasingly viewed as a key part of reaching net zero carbon emissions. It will be years before next-generation small reactors are built, but with Ottawa's help, they are coming. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
In the U.S., it's been a violent weekend with several mass shootings. 4 people were killed in Alabama after a shooting at a Sweet 16 birthday party. It happened last night at a dance studio. At least 16 others were injured. Authorities say most of the victims are teenagers. Police provided no information about what led to the shootings and would not say if any suspects are in custody. And in Louisville, Kentucky, there has been another mass shooting. Police are still searching for the suspect who opened fire into a crowd of hundreds gathered in a park last night. 2 people were killed, 4 people were wounded. The attack comes less than a week after a mass shooting at a bank that left 4 dead.
This is frustrating. This is very frustrating. I know that Monday was a very high-profile event, but for LMPD, for EMS, for fire, for University Hospital, for this community, this is every night. This is not okay. This has to change. We can talk about the politics of guns. We can talk about mental health issues. We can talk about the breakdown of the family. It's all of it.
Police say they have no witnesses. They're pleading for the public's help and urging the shooter to come forward. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there were 9 mass shootings in the U.S. yesterday alone. The organization defines it as having a minimum of 4 victims, not including any shooter. So far this year, there have been 163 mass shootings. A future parent's fertility insurance policy. Coming up, the growing business of egg freezing in Canada. Canada is considered a late childbearing country, and the national fertility rate sunk to a record low last year, according to Statistics Canada, with couples delaying their plans for having kids for a variety of reasons. Now, that's led to a rise in fertility treatments, including egg freezing. Vanessa Wright reports.
After a recent statistic by the WHO revealed that 1 in 6 people globally are affected by infertility, experts believe that may explain why egg freezing is rapidly growing across the country.
It's a bit of an insurance policy for your future fertility.
An insurance policy is exactly what 25-year-old PhD student Shania Bopa was hoping for after documenting her egg freezing journey on TikTok, inspiring others her age to discuss their experience with the popular technology.
I'm just so happy I took the leap of faith, hoping that this will all work out. And I'm so glad that I got to connect with so many women along this journey.
Medical egg freezing is usually performed for individuals affected by pre-existing issues, while social or elective egg freezing is more common for delaying fertility for circumstantial reasons.
If you want to postpone your fertility because you're not ready because of career or finance or social reason, then might be worthwhile to freeze the eggs.
Although egg freezing doesn't see as much legal implications as other areas of healthcare, there are ethical ones. Experts say the technology is often advertised as a have-it-all procedure, which may distort the true costs, risks, and definitions of success.
Is success based on the number of eggs that are retrieved? Is success based on the number of eggs that survive the thawing? Is it based on getting pregnant?
There are potential risks that arise. Perhaps the most serious is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. It's something that doesn't happen very often, but is certainly something that's important to advise patients about.
Experts suspect the demand in egg freezing will only continue to grow in popularity and hope that the conversation of women's reproductive health will grow along with it. Vanessa Wright, Global News, Halifax.
Ahead, how a 50-year-old antibiotic could be a morning-after solution to Canada's growing STI problem. The Public Health Agency of Canada says sexually transmitted infections have been on the rise in the last decade. The infections are quite often curable, or at least manageable with treatment. And now, as Catherine Ward reports, a well-known drug is showing promise.
Doxycycline has been around for decades, but the oral antibiotic may have some untapped potential, according to researchers.
Biologically, it has activity against chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis.
A recent study found when men who have sex with men and transgender women took the drug within 72 hours of having sex without a condom, rates of sexually transmitted infections declined.
We had enrolled 501 men and found about a 2/3 reduction in gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis.
The drug can treat chlamydia and syphilis as an alternative to penicillin, but is more commonly used for skin and bone infections, and even to prevent malaria.
Doxycycline is approved for use in Canada to treat bacterial infections, but not for preventing sexually transmitted infections. Some doctors are starting to prescribe it off-label.
I certainly do have patients personally on this, and I have several colleagues who have patients on this. And these are people, who are, really do qualify for this. They've perhaps struggled with several infections over the course of a year and are really looking to be proactive in their health.
But the drug may not work for everyone. A Kenyan study found doxycycline wasn't as effective for women.
The disappointing result was they did not see an effect. They did not see a reduction in gonorrhea or chlamydia.
It's also very disappointing because, right now we've been focusing primarily on one or two populations here in Canada and the US. But eventually there's a need in many other populations who are at risk as well.
Another concern is whether there could be a rise in antibiotic resistance.
These are the kinds of questions that I think a lot of public health officials and infectious disease docs would really like to have more information about.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
And maybe a show on Broadway or all of New York is on your to-do list for travel this summer. But if you do have a grand adventure in mind, you might be an outlier, because more and more Canadians say higher interest rates and persistent inflation are taking a toll on their summer getaway plans. That's according to Ipsos polling exclusively for Global News. And Gaviola has more on how the economy has changed the travel bug this year.
Last summer was all about revenge travel, a frenzy of bookings to make up for an extended period when many were stuck at home. This year, it's about dollars and cents and staycations.
Canadians are going to be looking for cheaper alternatives. Maybe they won't be booking a flight and traveling across the country or out of the country, but having that break is important for so many people.
6 in 10 Canadians are scaling back their summer vacation plans, according to Ipsos polling exclusively for Global News, almost all blaming inflation and economic uncertainty. A quarter say there's no way a summer trip could even be affordable. Only 13% plan to spend more this year.
Younger people who perhaps have less money to spend on vacation are the most likely to say that they need a vacation. They're among the most likely to say that they're going to splurge and take a vacation this year, come what may.
I was so shocked at how expensive it is to fly inside Canada, even if it's just to Newfoundland from Toronto. That was insane.
If Ottawa's so expensive, I might just go to Montreal or go to Niagara.
We are thinking about it, trying to put something in place, but cost is a big issue for sure. So we don't have anything set in stone yet.
What we're also seeing is more Canadians paying attention to destinations where the Canadian dollar goes a little bit further, like the Caribbean. South Asia is obviously a big destination.
Travel expert Omar Kaiwan suggests using reward points towards travel.
It's always a good idea to see how much you have in terms of points and use them as quickly as you possibly can, because these points can change at any point, whether it's the value of the points and how much you can redeem.
Hotel prices have spiked, so he suggests alternatives like Airbnb and VRBO. They can trim your food budget too if you have a full kitchen. And his final tip?
What we're also seeing with a lot of airlines and flight cancellations, especially some of these sort of cheaper airlines that are coming about, they're having some financial issues and flights are being delayed and shortage of staff.
Research whether medical and travel insurance may save you time and money in the long run. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
And that's Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Farah Nasser. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us, and a very happy Orthodox Easter to those of you who celebrate. The holiday especially important for Ukrainians as war rages on in their homeland. So tonight we're going to leave you with some festivities in Toronto as Ukrainian Canadians and newcomers alike celebrate. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Good night.